Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Oh, goodness, people. NIL, transfer portal, sticky business. Just absolute nightmare on what is going on right now in college athletics. It is just incredible, some of the stuff that's happening. And we have got a case, and in my opinion, is going to be kind of a, I don't know what I want to say and overblow it talking about a landscape case. But I think this one is going to be the biggest one as far as what direction NIL and the transfer portal go, man. This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Thank you for joining the Big 12 Insiders, man. I appreciate everybody being in here. This case with Xavier Lucas and Wisconsin and now the Big Ten, this is crazy. Absolutely crazy. We're going to break all of that down and what's going on because like I mentioned to you before, I think this case and what happens with this is going to decide the direction of future NIL and transfer portal deals. I really, truly believe that. So, but before we break all that down, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to get in those comment sections. We appreciate you guys. Thank you very, very much for all your all support, man. So let's dive into this. So first, Xavier Lucas. Who is Xavier Lucas? Well, freshman, defensive back, playing at Wisconsin. He's from Pompano Beach, Florida. Wisconsin has identified him as somebody that can really help them in the future. He started playing more down the stretch, playing well. Wisconsin's like, yeah, we need to keep this guy around, and understands that, you know, paying guys on your current roster, keeping them around, doing a good job of identifying those people. They say, yeah, 6'2", 198 pounds. This guy's got a future, man. We need to keep him as a Wisconsin Badger. Totally understands that. Signs him to a 2-year NIL deal or a rev sharing deal. I shouldn't say NIL. It's a rev sharing deal is what they signed him to. Okay, you're thinking, yeah, 2 years. He signs, no issues. He's at least going to be at Wisconsin for the next 2 seasons. Everybody's agreed. Okay. Then my man decides, you know what? And who knows? Wisconsin is claiming tampering. We'll get into that. But for whatever reason, the young man decides, you know what? I want to transfer. I want to get into the transfer portal. And this is literally where the issues begin. Right then and there. Signs a deal, decides, you know what? I want to back out. You haven't given me any money, and I want to back out of this. I want to enter into the transfer portal. Okay. Well, Wisconsin doesn't enter his name into the portal. They don't do it because they're like, hey, man, we got a 2-year signed agreement by you. We're not going to enter your name into the portal. Now, let's break that down a little bit. First off, you've got a young man that you've signed that you want to be on your team, but now is telling you that they no longer want to be there. What are you wanting to gain out of this? Now, there's going to be some of you that say, hey, you signed a contract. You got to honor that contract no matter what. You got to go. That's life consequences. I don't disagree with those people. You know, life is all about consequences. You've heard me say it a million times. Consequences are good. Consequences are bad. Whatever your actions are, but there is a consequence. Sign a deal. You got to honor that contract. I don't disagree with people that are on that side of the fence. But then there's the other side of the fence that says, but I can get out of this contract legally. I don't have to be a part of this contract. I can literally get out if I choose to get out. And okay, I'm not going to disagree with those people either, because if you do have a contract, but you can legally get out of it, okay. Now, what is Wisconsin trying to accomplish? Like, are you trying to force somebody to be there that is telling you that they no longer want to be there? Is that what Wisconsin, is that what they're trying to do? Is that, you know what? Yeah, he's telling us he doesn't want to be here, but if he stays, we make him stay. Maybe he'll come around and I just don't understand that, because I guess the ramification is if he doesn't want to be there, he's having a horrible time, and you're forcing him to be there. Are you willing to say, because you signed a 2-year agreement, we're going to ruin your future? Is that the goal? Is that we know you're miserable, we know you don't want to be here, but too bad, so sad, you signed a contract. Again, two sides of the fence. One side, hey, man, you signed, you knew what you were doing, we didn't trick you into anything. The other side, hey, I can legally get out of it. My thing is, Wisconsin not putting his name in the transfer portal lets me know that Wisconsin is trying to uphold this agreement. But that's where the issue comes in, is that they signed a rev sharing deal for the next 2 years, but NIL, you can't say, oh, the institutions aren't supposed to be able to pay for that. Not supposed to. It's against NCAA rules. You can't pay for play yet. You know, I know that we talked about the House versus the NCAA and all of that coming into effect. And yes, they've agreed that there's going to be a settlement that teams are going to have, or schools are going to have to pay, but that's not finished. So, like, nobody knows the number, like, the settlement hasn't been agreed upon, like, so none of that has been decided yet. So having somebody sign this 2-year agreement doesn't really mean anything. And that's where another part of the sticky contract comes in, is that, you know, Lucas's attorney, David Hefner, is like, hold on a second. You can't sign my client to an agreement that you can't enforce. Like, you can't enforce. This goes against NCAA rules. You can't enforce this. So regardless if he signed it or not, literally, it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. And, oh, by the way, he put in to transfer, and you wouldn't enter his name into the transfer portal. Tell us why. Well, we got this signed agreement, but that agreement doesn't mean anything. This is the back and forth that's going on, people. And look, we've seen other people get into the transfer portal. We saw a freshman this year go to Oregon. A couple weeks later, I don't want to go to Oregon. Goes into the transfer portal, transfers to Cal. Oregon lets him out. Wisconsin is saying, hey, man, you got a 2-year agreement with us where he's significant. He's going to get significant NIL money. And I think that's where the hangup comes in. You can't give them money. You can't pay them based on that. And so the attorney is right. You can't pay him based on that. Signing this contract goes against NCAA rules. Now, it might be the rule 6 months from now, but as we stand today, you can't do that. So you have to let my client out. And by not allowing or putting his name into the transfer portal, you got a 2-day window to be able to do that, or that you have to do that. He can't contact other schools. Wisconsin is now saying, because he transferred to the University of Miami, he's saying that they are saying that they tampered with him. Well, there should be nothing to tamper with, is what the attorney is claiming, because if you would have entered his name, then he could have contacted other schools. You chose not to. Tell us why. He doesn't want to be there, but you want to force him to be there. You see the push and pull. I just, look, to me, it boils down to this. Wisconsin, the Big Ten, and institutions all across the country want to continue to hold the power. They understand that they had the power, whatever number of years you want to say, they always had the power. Well, now that power is being stripped away and stripped away. Little by little, they are losing the power and losing the fight. And the NCAA is just literally throwing its hands up. They're like, whatever. You guys asked for this. You guys figure it out. You're trying to eliminate us anyway, so what do you care what we do? You know, we tried to have rules. We tried to, but you didn't want that, so figure it out on yourself. We don't care. That's the problem, because the NCAA is in charge of enforcement. But when you have, it would be like if cops just said, yeah, I know this is committing crime and we're supposed to arrest you, but, you know, you're not going to prosecute anything, or, you know, no matter what we do, no matter what they do, we can bring them in, but you're not going to do anything. So why waste our time? You don't want us around. That's literally what this is that the NCAA had rules. They tried to enforce those rules, but you said, no, we don't like those rules. We're going to go a different direction. Now, another problem with it, the NCAA was so inundated, or outdated, I should say, with how they were trying to enforce rules and keep athletes from making money and tried to hoard everything. Well, they brought that on themselves. You know, that's the difference. They've brought this unrest and this uprising against them. They brought it on themselves. They could have made make sense rules and laws and bylaws where everybody could have profited. But instead, the NCAA decided, we want all the profits, we hold all the cards, and now you're being pushed back on, and you're like, and you're losing huge, and now you just say, well, I give up. I don't think the NCAA should give up. Just do some things that make sense. And if you do some things that make sense, people can get on board with that. But when you continue the dumb fights, and we see it all the time from the NCAA, every now and then we'll see them come out. Like last year, they came out with, yeah, when you go on recruiting visits, you can't allow the recruits to get cookies in their hotel room. That's an impermissible gift. What did you say again? Excuse me? You're talking about cookies in a hotel room? Or they're mad. I mean, they banned Jim Harbaugh for buying a hamburger for a recruit. The NCAA wanted you to believe that it was much more than a hamburger, although they couldn't prove anything other than that. That's what they went out and bought a hamburger. Or they get mad that recruits show up at a coach's house on a recruiting trip, or maybe not on a recruiting trip. They come to a barbecue or something like that when they weren't supposed to come to a bar. Stupid stuff like that. I mean, meaningless stuff. Now, if a booster or something had paid somebody $100,000, that would be something different. But you're telling me you're prosecuting people for barbecues and hamburgers and cookies? That's why the NCAA is irrelevant these days. And I know there's people out there, hey, rules are rules, Big B. You got to stick to the rules no matter what. It is what it is. You knew what the rule was, and you broke it. But I would also lean into some rules are stupid and some rules are meant to be broken. As long as you're not hurting anyone, some rules are meant to be broken. And, you know, NCAA having a rule book this thick when it could be this thick, that's part of the problem. That's part of the major problem. But getting back onto this case, because I don't want to distract from what's going on. We could talk about the NCAA and their stupidity. We could have a whole podcast till the end of time on that. Don't want to do that today. But the Big Ten is joining the fight, and they're right with Wisconsin. And this is going to end up in a lawsuit. I think everybody knows that. Everything ends up in a lawsuit with all this stuff these days. But he unenrolled. Mr. Lucas has unenrolled from Wisconsin, enrolled at Miami, and this is going to have to get done here in the next 6 weeks or 6 months, because I suspect he's going to end up playing at Miami this year unless something else is done. And my whole thing with all of this is Wisconsin is trying to hold somebody to something, and they no longer want to be there. For instance, let's just say it was a coach, and a coach has an agreement. Okay? And that coach's agreement is 5 years. And that coach wants to go take another job. Now, in a coach's contract, they have a buyout clause. Yeah, you can leave, but you got to pay us a certain amount of money, which the coach's next employer usually takes care of. Great. All that works itself out. Having said all of that, was there anything in this contract that says that? Was there anything in this contract that Wisconsin signed that said he can't transfer at any time whatsoever? And if he does he owe money back? But I think that's another part of this. He hadn't received any money yet. There's Wisconsin fans who say, hey, did you give the bag bad? Have you done? He hasn't received any money. So if he hadn't received any money, then there's nothing to give back. And if it's not in his contract that if he wants out, that he has to pay any money back, even if he had received any, what are we talking about here? Now you're just trying to hold somebody here. And I know a lot of people they get mad if I call them kids because, they're not kids, they're 18. I'm going to call them kids. I'm 49, they're kids. You want to hold a kid at a university that he doesn't want to be at anymore. Why would you want that? First of all, why do you want that in your locker room? That would be my first question as a coach. Why do you want a kid in your locker room that doesn't want to be there? I mean, you're going to force him to be somewhere that he doesn't want to be. What sense does that make? All because he signed a contract saying he would be with you? Okay, I get that part of it. But it's not like it's 6 months in, 8 months in, a year in. It was 2 days in. And he's decided, I no longer want to be here. I want to go somewhere else. Now, on the flip side, did tampering happen? Yes. That's what Wisconsin and the Big Ten are claiming. Did tampering happen? 100% it did. 100% there was tampering. Anybody trying to tell you that there wasn't is lying. You know how I feel about stuff. I'm not a big absolute guy, but you're not going to tell me that tampering didn't occur because it occurs everywhere. Okay? It occurs everywhere, whether it's back channels with people. My cousin knew somebody and they contacted my cousin to get in contact with me, or players just reaching out to coaches on their own, or they have agents reaching out to other teams. It happens every day, all day, and you're lying if you don't believe that. You're being extremely naive if you don't believe that tampering happens with every university, people. Yes, the one that you root for too, your school is also tampering, okay? So I want to make that clear, that it's not just Miami. It's everyone. Okay. Now that we've got that clear, doesn't matter. How are you going to, first of all, how are you going to enforce it? Like, what are you wanting to do? Are you wanting to punish Miami because they tampered? Well, the only reason they tampered is because you didn't put his name in the transfer portal. Had you done that, there would be no tampering because, hey, first of all, well, let me backtrack. They tampered with him to get him into the transfer portal to begin with. Okay, so before I get on this high horse, Miami tampered to get him into the transfer portal to start. Great. But then Wisconsin doubles down and says, nope, we're not putting you in, so you can't go anywhere. Well, then he unenrolls and he goes to Miami anyway, and then he ends up signing there. That's part of the problem. That is part of the problem. It is a mess, this entire case. But like I said at the beginning, people, this is going to be again, I don't like saying landmark cases because it makes it sound like it's this huge thing, but maybe I should. Maybe it is. Maybe it is going to be the landmark case to decide the direction of NIL and transfer portal and what's allowed and what's not allowed. There's got to be one. There's got to be a case because basically this kid was able to transfer from Wisconsin to Miami without ever being in the transfer portal, which is incredible. And now you're going to, and if the courts allow this to happen, that's what the Wisconsin's argument is. You're going to allow him without being in the transfer portal? It's legal mumbo jumbo that I don't like because that's what it's going to end up coming down to. He wanted to be in the transfer portal. He signed an agreement with us. Well, you can't enforce an agreement because you can't sign an NIL/rev sharing deal because that's not part of the rules currently when he signed this. So how are you going to enforce something that can't be signed? Well, it's a legal binding agreement. It's going to come down to lawyer mumbo jumbo. If you're going to pin me down and say, okay, Big B, which way do you think it's going to go? I think Xavier Lucas is going to win. I think he is going to win. And it's going to force, and part of the rules are going to force teams to say, if they want to go into the transfer portal, you have to put their name in immediately as soon as they contact you. You have a certain window that you have to place their name in the transfer portal. Now, will that change once the House versus NCAA, that case is finally settled? Will that change? Yes, I believe it absolutely will change. But as of right now, until that happens, since the schools can't sign rev deals and NIL deals with players, since they're not allowed to do that, until that day comes, this is going to be the precedent. Again, schools losing power, losing the ability to hold players to really anything when it comes to transferring. Because, and it doesn't matter, and that's why there's got to be some rules with all this stuff. You give me $100,000, okay, but you know what? I don't have an agreement. I can just leave, and I'm going to leave. I don't like it here, but thanks for the money. That's why I think they got to get this House versus NCAA case. They got to get it settled as soon as possible. The Wild Wild West is going on, and it's just Katie bar the door. Now, I'm not going to go as far as people know, it's ruining college football. It's ruining college athletics. No, it's not. Because we got the biggest numbers that we've ever gotten for the college football playoff, people watching all those games. So stop the nonsense. And did you all see an empty seat at any of those games? The home games, the bowl games, semifinal, championship game. Did y'all see any empty seats? No, you didn't. So people still went. Oh, by the way, are you going to see any empty seats at the Final Four this year? No, you're not. Are people still going to watch March Madness? Yes, they are. I have a vested interest in this. Volleyball, not even one of the big revenue sports. The volleyball Final Four was in Louisville. Now, granted, Louisville was in it, but the volleyball Final Four was in Louisville. If anybody paid attention or watched that at all, there wasn't an empty seat in the house. And Louisville only played one of the two semifinal games. The stadium was packed. So people are still showing up to watch these games. They're still going. Whether we like the rules or not, we love our sports. We love the entertainment. So we're still going. Regardless if we complain about some of the rules, I get it. But we're still going. But this is, man, all of this, it's going to be interesting how this turns out. I don't think Wisconsin and the Big Ten are going to have a leg to stand on, especially when you consider you signed into a binding agreement that is not even enforceable. Like you're trying to enforce something that's not in the rules. I'm not a lawyer, so I could be totally off base with that. And if I am, so be it. But I just don't see how you can enforce something and hold them to something that isn't in the rules, because technically they're breaking the rules by signing it. Like you can't pay players now. The name, image, and likeness can't come from institutions. That's it. So you signing this means nothing. But it's an even deeper issue for me. It's why do you want to hold somebody? Why do you want to hold a kid and have that kid, an unhappy kid in your locker room around a bunch of other kids that do want to be there? Like, why would you even entertain having that poisonous apple amongst apples that want to be? I just don't understand that part of it. You know he doesn't want to be there, but you're going to hold. First of all, you're going to treat him the same. We're all human. We all are. Human nature takes over. You're going to treat that kid the same that doesn't want to be there the same as the other guys that do. No, you're not. You're not going to do that. You're not. And I know coaches just want to win. They do. They also have integrity, and they're also human. And what's going to happen the first time he does something wrong and the coach says something, gets on him, and he says, I don't even want to be here anyway. Then what? You guys are making me be here. I don't even want to be here. What are the other kids supposed to think? Like, did anybody put any thought into that? Or how's he going to get along with teammates? He's supposed to get along with teammates that they know he doesn't want to be there. Now, kids are kind of resilient, and some of them can see the fruit. They see through stuff. I was going to come up with a catchy analogy, but it didn't make sense. But kids can see through stuff. Hey, man, he's from Pompano Beach, Florida. Miami called. He's wanting to go home to go to school. Or you know what? Whatever we were promising in money, Miami's going to give him more or match it so he can go home. I get it. But there's going to be other kids that are like, man, get this kid out of here. He didn't even want to be here with us. Why is he here? Why is he playing ahead of me when he doesn't even want to be here? What are we doing? How are you supposed to get along? It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. Now, I understand you can't let kids run your football team. Coaches have to have some power. But at the same time, what's more important? Are you rather lose the war over this battle? Sounds like maybe Wisconsin, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but Wisconsin got ahead of its skis with having people sign these 2-year agreements that aren't enforceable in my eyes. I don't think a judge is going to enforce it. I really don't. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so if there are any lawyers, you can tell me wrong, and I will be wrong. You all know me. I can be wrong. But I just don't think you can enforce something and have language in this document that's talking about a financial gain when literally you can't pay them. Ooh, ugly, 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 ugly. So appreciate you all giving us the time like you always do, man. Get in these comments. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I think this one is a doozy. This is a doozy for the NCAA and the transfer portal. We're going to find out about it in the next coming days, weeks, months, because it's got to get taken care of sooner than later. This can't be something that drags on 2 or 3 years because people are going to start playing football games. Spring football is happening. A lot of stuff, interchanging parts. So we're going to get an answer to this one. I cannot wait to see, because if it's as big as what I think it's going to get to, this will change everything. At least until the House versus NCAA settlement has been settled. I think this case will set the precedents moving forward until that is settled and moved on. And who knows how long that's going to take. That could take 2, 3, 4 years from now. We don't think that it will, but it could. Who knows? So appreciate everybody. Remember to get into the comments section. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure that you do, man. We're still growing, and we appreciate it. Thank you, guys, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.